Thank you, Bevis. Good morning, everyone. Really delighted to be here at Triodos annual meeting in the UK. And happy to talk a bit about it from a group perspective and also more historical perspective, because obviously Triodos Bank is a bank like any others and also a very special bank. We are like any other because we are playing within the system. We are regulated by the PRA and the Dutch Central Bank. But we're also very special because we have an impact vision and we want to consciously create positive impact. And I think that really sets us apart because we have created a vision based on 5 transitions that we use in every single decision that we make within the bank. And you will see the transitions here because Triodos is really about creating the right quality of life for the inhabitants of planet Earth and make sure that we stay within planetary boundaries. And in order to do so, it is crucial that we align our activities with 5 transitions that are taking place and that we really want to accelerate and that we want to finance the transformative stuff in. And those 5 transitions are the food transition, where we go from a more animal-based protein diet to plant-based, where we make sure that we do agriculture which is aligned with nature, and where we take care of the soil and don't use the pesticides and move away from the more intensive system that we currently have. We do so with the circularity or the resource transition, where we try not to bring too many new resources into the system, but as much as possible reuse things, upcycle it, so really become more circular. You may know us perhaps best from the energy transition, where we have long been a very major player in moving from fossil fuels to renewables, and I will say a bit more about that later. And that's all more sort of on the green, on the planetary boundary side, but very importantly, there is also the social and the societal side. And so we have the societal transition, where we want to make sure that we have a society where everybody can play, so it's about inclusion. And it's also about avoiding that we become too polarized and that we remain with a cohesive society, basically. And the other part, which we call the well-being side, is more about us, individual human beings, and making sure that everybody has a quality of life so that they can live with dignity. And we know that here the competition is also moving. But we have the ambition to be a front runner, and we are working very hard to continue be that front runner, and also to explain that when other banks talk about impact, they often talk about a smaller part of their balance sheet, or they talk about a number of activities, while at the same time they're also still financing stuff that is not helping us in the right direction. So we also have to communicate about what still sets us apart from others. Now then, if we move to that impact, and basically what Triodos stands for is to create high impact with a modest risk profile and with a decent return. And I think in 2023, we really managed to do that. If you want to see all the detail, please go to our annual report. But on the impact side, we have a theory of change for the things that we invest in or that we finance. We have objectives that we try to manage there. We then measure, and you see some of the measurements on this slide, because only if you do that, you can manage also your impact. And you can see that the impact, for example, in 2023 led to us financing 240 renewable energy projects in portfolio. We were again the #1 originator of new deals in that sector. But on the social side, there are also many indicators. And on this slide, you see one that we have financed care homes that have enabled 45,000 people to live a good life. If I continue with my next slide, then we still are very ambitious. Because in one of these areas, which is really the climate emergency that we have a very ambitious goal. I've talked about it before, and so has Bevis. S1 to 0, we want to be net zero in 2035. We are already a bank that has a much lower CO2 intensity than others. So we have in the past already been doing the right stuff, but we want to do more of that. And we are measuring our own carbon footprint by using the PCAF standard, a standard that we were one of the founders of, and that now has, I think, become the global leading standard for a financial institution on how to measure your CO2 footprint. And we disclose that every year, and this year as well. And it covers 100% of our loans and our investments. So we don't just do it on a part of it, and we try to improve it. And when I say we try to improve it, we do so in different ways. On the one hand, we work with our clients so that they can really decrease their carbon intensity directly, for example, by making sure that their buildings are more energy efficient. We also do so a bit more indirectly, but because the energy that they are using, and we are a big player in renewable energy, the mix becomes lower and lower CO2 footprint. That helps a lot as well. And a third thing that we are finding is that we continue to improve our data. And when we get data at the client level, we often find that the kind of companies and projects that we finance are better than the average in the sector. So that also contributes to lowering our carbon footprint. And if I look at the result last year, we actually had a decrease of 12% in our carbon footprint. So that's a very, very good result, which we are very proud of. And besides that, we have started activity to do more sequestration with nature-based solutions. And it means that we finance nature, or we finance agriculture that works with nature, where net they don't emit CO2, but they actually sequester more than they emit, so that they also have a contribution. Then the third thing on this topic that I would like to talk to is that we were the first financial sector player that actually joined the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty. This is a treaty of governments, NGOs, and other players who have said, look, we really have to make firm plans that we will start to phase out fossil fuels. And what we see is that a lot of players in the world, including financial institutions, now try to do more of the good stuff. But if we continue to finance the stuff that has a negative impact, then we are not really getting anywhere. And Triodos, of course, is a very credible player in this area. And I would now like to give the floor to a short video with my colleague Jeroen Rijpkema, who will say a bit more about the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty.
Thank you to all the signatories who joined our open letter asking governments to commit to a fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty. An important call we are making for both our current and future generations. At COP28, nearly 200 countries agreed that we need to move away from fossil fuels. Clearly a positive step forward, even though the outcome was not the firm commitment to phase out fossil fuels we were all hoping for. Still, it does send a clear signal that the era of oil, coal and natural gas will need to come to an end. Now it's up to us to turn promises into action. We must accelerate this momentum and stop using fossil fuels as soon as possible to ensure that we can start living within the planetary boundaries. We call upon the financial sector to take its responsibility, to accelerate investments in renewable energy and to stop financing fossil fuels. Divesting fossil fuels is an investment in our own future and in the future of generations to come. We all must intensify our efforts to have governments create the right conditions to foster the sustainable energy transition. This includes the mutual call for a fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty. This is the missing international framework that will help to create a global level playing field to achieve the net zero ambitions. So we call upon everybody. Talk to your governments, your bank, your pension fund. And last but not least, adjust your own life and use and invest your money consciously. Let's make the radical shift away from fossil fuels together. Thank you.
After having seen the film with Jeroen, let's shift to the second part of our promise to you. Besides a high impact, we also want to have a modest return. And if we look at the financials of 2023, I think we managed to do that. 2023 was a year, of course, where on the European subcontinent, we really saw much higher interest rates than before. That has helped our business. We were also able to contain our cost and to restructure the business a bit so that we can focus on the things that are really important and make sure that those costs don't increase too much. And that led to a record profit of over 77 million, as you can see, and 6.1% return on equity, which is well within the range that we target of 5 to 7%. Now, wrapping it up, I would just want to reflect on the role of Triodos in society. I think our founders, when they started this bank more than 40 years ago, already they did it exactly right. They basically said we have to make sure that people understand that in the financial sector, the decisions that you make don't only have a financial consequence, but they have a consequence in terms of what happens in the real economy and what doesn't happen. And that has been the role that we want to play. And it's a very conscious choice that we do so within the sector, because that allows us to demonstrate how it can be done. And it gives us more credibility in terms of talking to other financial institutions, talking to the regulators in how we can change the system for the better. And in 2024, we want to continue that. We want to continue to work on having human dignity, a good quality of life for everyone on this planet, and making sure that we stay within the planetary boundaries. Thank you very much.